Hey, Hunnies! Welcome back to Life is a Question Mark podcast here. This is the podcast where you never know what will be happening next. Heck, I never even know sometimes until it is happening. I am your host that always keeps you on your toes and is such a question mark of a person, Heather Donovan. So I haven't been with you guys in a couple weeks, and honestly, it's kind of my fault, kind of not. Well, to be honest, I started recording an episode. Well, I already recorded it. But I started editing it, that's what I meant to say. And honestly, it's so far past when I originally recorded it that I kind of don't want to publish it because it's going to be old. And, I just kind of want to pick back up from scratch and just work my way up from here. So I will be saving. I had two other topics for the month of October. Unfortunately, didn't happen. And I'll tell you why in a second, but I will come back to them eventually. But it's not a right now thing. So the reason why I haven't been able to podcast in a while, or release podcast, the whole entire shebang, because I've been absent on my social media too for the podcast, well, it's kind of a lot of different things at once. I have been so ungodly busy, and work with the self-checkouts has just been stressful and everything, constantly getting yelled at and sweared at. I was called a fucking jackass who actually put in the self-checkouts. Which, who knew I had that authority? I didn't even know I had that manager, upper corporate authority. I mean, my paycheck certainly doesn't match corporate level, but sure, I just put in the freaking self-checkouts to give myself more of a headache and to get screamed at, sure. But honestly, there's good and bads with them. I mean, right now I'm seeing mostly bad, and I have been seeing bad for the last month. They've been in there for about a month as I'm recording. I'm being a lot of screamed at, a lot of people are walking out on us and taking it out on us, and I don't know, I think that was the breaking point to this next thing I'm going to say. And I will be truthful about this because I am an open book to an extent. I have slipped into a depression, and it's just taken so much energy out of me to the point where I honestly want to sleep all the time, and I just can't be dedicated to things I want to be dedicated, and I procrastinate things like working on my dances as much as I should be, and podcasting. And I really want to do those things. That's the problem. I do want to podcast. I do want to make this something. But I want to do this for fun. This is my sanity. And it's proven me this in the weeks that I haven't podcasted. But I don't know. I've been slipping into a dark place. And I think I didn't notice it until up till a couple weeks ago. When work started getting bad with the hollering and screaming and my boss being overly stressed and stuff and taking it out on me. And it's just been hard lately. With the economy how it is, I feel like I'm constantly paying something every single time I turn around. If I get ahead, I'm paying my bills, or get ahead of money, all of a sudden it has to go to something else, and everything is so ungodly expensive. Food's out of this world. I mean, I'm sure everybody's picking between eating and, paying bills, and that's kind of where I am too, but I don't know. It's just been something, and I'm having some personal issues at home, and I don't know, I'm feeling so stressed and overwhelmed. I keep procrastinating on things and I don't know why. That's a lot of mixture of different things. So, I mean, it's not just me being busy. It's a bunch of different reasons. So, this is Wednesday. I am seeing a doctor in 2 days, which is Friday, virtually. I'm going to talk to him about, I'll probably get upped on my ADHD medicine and anxiety medicine. And then I'll probably get upped on my depression medicine until I get everything back into shape. Because I do not want to get back into that dark place where I was, where I wanted to take my own life, and I was having an eating disorder, because I'm already having doubts about myself that I know hasn't been an issue for a long time, but all of a sudden they're coming back, and I already know I'm starting to slip, so I want to get ahead of it before anything happens again, where I go too much farther and darker side. And on top of that, I will be open and honest about this. I am going to ask him if there's any options, if he'll refer me to a few places where they have virtual counseling / therapy, because you know what? I'll be a strong enough person. People will take that as weakness, but I'll take it as a strength. I know I need to talk to somebody to get through this stuff. I mean, heck, sometimes talking through things out loud to somebody, and then when I say something and talk it out loud, it makes me think about another solution and other ways to do something, or processing that I couldn't have come up with before. So I think that could be very beneficial to me, and I will be the strong person to say that I am one of those individuals who need it. And honestly, I think everybody could benefit from therapy and counseling. I mean, yes, it could take forever to find the right person and what works best for you, but there are options out there, and it can be very tiring finding somebody, but it is worth it. And let's see, what else have I been up to? Oh, I have started some dances in my dance classes. I finished my first solo from a competition. Very excited about competition. I am a little nervous about my competition, mostly because, It's those doubts creeping in, but I will get over it eventually. I think it's just once I get myself straightened out, I'll be okay. I started working on my second one. I started working on multiple dance routines with my other classes. Teaching has been going pretty well. Oh, another thing, you may have noticed, I don't know if you guys are hearing it, but I haven't been doing the greatest for the last couple of weeks because I started my weekly allergy shots back up because my allergist recommended me going back on allergy shots. I've been on multiple different allergy medicines and treatments and nothing's really sticking. So we're trying the weekly allergy shots to see if they could get anywhere. And honestly, they are kicking my butt-ski. So, I mean, I feel like I did during the spring/summertime months, which I'm sure that's probably what they were going for, but it's a great time. I'm having a grand old time over here. Can you tell? And for the podcast, I have been doing some work on it very recently. I did reach out to a few very heavy-hitter people that I would like to be guests on this podcast, but I have not heard anything back from them. But you know what? I get people that are busy in life. I mean, hell, I can't even catch a break right now. I know one person I asked, they're still on tour. They have their own podcast. Another one, she is just getting ready to graduate college, and she has her own projects going on too. And then I get multiple people have projects and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not going to be in denial and say, oh, they don't want to bother. Come on. That could not be even the case. I also get this as a small podcast, a startup podcast, and I have no big name. So I get it. I could get why those big heavy hitters would be not wanting to come on or very standoffish about it or whatever the word is. But you're very hopeful to get at least them on at some point or maybe someday. But I mean, if I never hear back from them, that's okay too. I understand. At least I tried. I went out of my comfort zone and reached out to them on my own. So who knows? I guess we'll see. But I do have another guest that I am going to have on at some point. Actually, a couple other ones. One of them's kind of hard to get around into because we can't always seem to meet up. But I've met another person, another podcaster that would like to come on mine and me come on his. So we are working on that. Just know that the podcast is not dying off. I have not given up hope on this podcast. No. Very contrary. It's just me dealing with life stuff. I have not given up on this podcast whatsoever. I mean, I don't even know what giving up is sometimes, so there's that. I have also started out a Patreon and a YouTube channel as well for the podcast. I will be making my podcast into the videos, which I do not want a video of myself doing podcasts. I barely have time to edit my own right now. I'd like to outsource and have somebody edit the podcast for me, but I really don't know anybody to do that, and I really don't have the financial resources to have somebody else do it for me. So as of right now, I still have to do it. Not my favorite part, but I'm doing it, I guess. But with that being said, with the editing, I would not have time to edit a video podcast either. I mean, maybe someday that would be in the cards. Seeing that I record in my podcast, like right now, I don't even have a place to videotape my podcast while I'm doing it, let alone record. So there's also that. Would I be open to it in the future? Yes, absolutely. Just not right now, because I'm doing podcast bare at the moment, but it's fine. Speaking of that, too, I will be changing my schedule to try to keep us on a schedule. Instead of having this podcast coming out every single week for a new episode, a new episode is going to drop every 2 weeks. So the next one will drop on Thursday, December 1st of 2023, or we're listening in the future. That's the new plan going forward until life is figured out or whatever the case may be. I figured a 2-week schedule would be enough for me to get anything I want to get notes on and anything planned and the recording time in it and have the editing time that I really don't want to do. It's fine. Be patient with me, please. Please stick around with me as I navigate this in this very kind of rough patch time for not just me, but I'm sure the whole world. Anyways, with all that being said, that'll be it for this week's podcast. I am really making it short because, well, to be honest, I'd like to go home and take a little nap before everything comes on. TV and stuff. Oh, that's what I should do quick. TV stuff. Alright, so for Big Brother, I gotta be honest, I stopped watching the week before Corey got evicted. Week of? I don't know, somewhere around there. Because my schedule just didn't work, especially with the episodes coming out at 10 o'clock at night on Sundays. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stay up for that long and then get up at 8 a.m. in the morning and possibly not even come home till 7, 8 o'clock at night some days. I just couldn't do it. But I did hear who the winner was, and honestly, I'm not shocked. And you know what? The whole entire story and season came out the same as season 16, and to be honest, I'm a little disappointed in Big Brother. I've already seen Big Brother 16 once. I really didn't need to see it again, but I guess I'm watching it again because I am back to watching it. I just saw Corey getting evicted, and you know what? That was the downfall in everybody else's game. Because everybody else could have made it farther if they kept him over America. Because I believe he would have honestly beaten one of the double eviction or competition or whatever, and then possibly got one of the two. And you know what? One of them may have still won, but it would have been both of them in the final too. So I mean, that kind of irritates me. But I do see how that happened now. If only they kept Corey in the game. But whatever. I'm just a spectator, I guess. And the one who watches and analyzes these reality TV shows, so what would I know? I don't know, man. I don't know who's doing the casting for these shows, but come on, guys. Get it to frickin' gather. The cast frickin' sucked this year overall. You know, very disappointed over Survivor. That's on tonight, too. I gotta go home and watch that. The only one who did casting right for CBS is The Amazing Race. That one is one of the tolerable things for me to watch right now. Oh, you know what else I'm into? I'm into the challenge right now, too. The new one. Oh, God, I can't remember what one they're up for. It's like the champion one. That cast is stacked. Let me tell you what. They have picked an awesome cast for the season, and I love it. I'm obsessed. I love how they all got together when Big T came out, which I kind of saw coming, kind of didn't, but it makes me so happy how people could still have humanity in this world, and are not total butt-rights. They can celebrate her coming out and still love her for being her, and not think, oh, she likes women, and she must be disgusting, and blah, 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 blah. You know the stories. I don't have to repeat it to you guys. That made me very happy. So anyway, now I will dip out for this episode. So, Hunnies, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and tell your favorite strangers about the podcast. Subscribing with me automatically downloads the podcast onto whatever platform you're listening to, and you don't have to do nothing, because you're one of the first people to know when I drop that new podcast without even doing anything. Lucky you. You can follow Converse with the podcast and other listeners of the pod by following the podcast social media. The Facebook is Life is a Question Mark Podcast, and the Instagram and TikTok is Life as a Question Mark Pod. I really do love hearing from you all, especially on your feedback about the pod. It really helps the podcast become better. You can also follow myself on my own personal Instagram and TikTok at Miss D's World 2022. You can also find a link tree to everything that is in the social media pages bios that I've mentioned above. And yes, it will include the YouTube and Patreon page I just created for the podcast. And this is also where you can locate the podcast website too as well. You can also show your love and support to the podcast by donating to the pod. You could donate by clicking the support link in the show notes that is in every episode in every podcast that you listen to, subscribing to the pod on the podcast website, or by hitting the payment button in the link tree. And now there's a fourth option, and that is to subscribe to the podcast Patreon, which I will be releasing special content if you subscribe, and I will be finishing setting everything up this weekend. When you make a donation, no matter how big or small it may be, I will give you a shout out on an episode of the podcast. If you're not into shout-outs, though, it's okay. I can give someone a message for you on an episode of the podcast instead. I can do messages such as proposals, wedding proposals, give someone the bad news that you want a divorce, or I could tell someone to pick up their goddamn laundry off the floor that you're sick of tripping over. No matter what you choose, it will be personal for you, and a very small thank you for helping the podcast become better and grow. Please make all donations for family and friends, though. All donations will go 100% towards the podcast only. For example, it could go towards paying the subscription cost for either using the program that I use to edit the podcast, or towards the website subscription if I need any new or extra equipment for the podcast, or it could go towards any traveling expenses to go interview a guest to be on the podcast. What I mean by that is the heavy hitter guest. So, hopefully I'll get some someday. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I will see you all next week. I don't have a quote, a special word for you guys of the week. No anything this week. It's just, please support me. I guess we'll just end on that note. Please support, please stick around, and all that good stuff. As Mama Felicia says it from Big Brother 25, all that shit. Thanks, guys. I will talk to you in 2 weeks.